Battle of the Nifty 50s. New versus old. Vintage versus modern. Which one is better? In what situation is it better? Let's get into it. So here are 3 quick reasons why the 50mm focal length is my favorite. 1 is the depth of field. So you can get really out of focus backgrounds pretty easy by getting not too far away, not too distant from your subject, and getting mostly what you want in frame, especially when you go and do portraits. Number 2, 50mm is the closest focal length to where your eye sees. It doesn't have so much compression that it looks like a building that's hundreds of meters away is super close, like a 200mm or 400mm would do, but it also doesn't look like everything's pushed further away like a 15mm or 20mm wide-eyed fish angle lens would do. Also, cinema lenses, they stick to anamorphic 50mm because they get that nice stretch 2.35 ratio, and some people like even more to get a super stretch ratio similar to what you would see with your eye. Number 3, the last reason is I compare all other lenses to this lens right here. The 50mm 1.8 is a lens that I start with whenever I go to a shoot, and doesn't always stay on my camera, but it's the one I always go to whenever I don't know exactly what I want to do.
I did 2 real-world tests, one for the minimum focusing distance, as well as a little bit of chromatic aberration. And the second test was to test out the manual focusing of the lenses. So one of them has manual focus, so with the start and stop point, and the other one is a pull-by-wire lens. So you'll see exactly what those do. So here's the test for the minimum focusing distance of the Nikkor H lens, released in 1964. So you can see this lens has about a minimum focus of about 21.5 inches or 55 centimeters. You can also see how the letters, when they're closer to us, are more discolored, and that's due to chromatic aberration of the lens. So I try to use the same framing for the 50mm 1.8 lens, but because of the way of how close the minimum focus distance was, I had to shift down and to the right so that you could actually see what the distance was. As far as chromatic aberration for the 50mm Z, I really didn't notice any.
A/B filmmaking test. Focus point A to focus point B. Focus point A, B, A, B, A/B test with the 50mm Z lens. That's why I can already tell you how this one's gonna go. I'm starting at A now, going to B, I already passed it. So this is the one thing with pull-by-wire lenses. It's super hard to get this focus on there. I have to be very careful. I can't do a fast rack. If I go fast, like if I try to go from A to B fast, I passed it. It just, even with, trying to, I have to be super slow and delicate, and I can get it to a decent rate, but really, and this is one thing with speed, especially in cinema, you want to be able to go from A to B fast and not go past your target, because then that's a bad take. Let's talk about pros and cons. Pros of the 50mm Nikon Z lens here, you have autofocus for one. It's pretty fast as well. There's a pretty good level of sharpness from the lens. There's very low chromatic aberration in this lens. It's lightweight, and it has a really good minimum focus distance. Cons. It has poor manual focusing actually, because of the way that it's a pull-by-wire lens. So you don't actually have a start and stop point to your lens. So you spin faster and it'll jump from close to infinite very fast. If you go slow, it'll slowly go from close distance to infinite focusing distance. And it also has no aperture ring. So you only have focus ring and a on and off manual focus switch on the side here. Pros of the 50mm vintage lens. For one, it's super cheap, slightly softer look for video. Maybe you like that, maybe you don't. If you don't like the sharpness, it has a long focus throw. So for video, this is perfect because you get to, and that's for photos as well. If you're manual focusing your lens, you want a longer focus throw so that you don't accidentally miss. Like trying to manual focus on the 50 mil Z lens is very hard. I wouldn't ever try to do it for photos unless something was sitting still. But this lens, maybe you could actually probably manual focus a person kind of rocking backwards, forwards, and probably do some nice portraits with the 50 mil by using manual focus. So this 50 mil is actually lighter. The old one is actually lighter, and this one is already light by this day and age. The F mount, the last generation F mount 50 mil 1.8 was a little bit heavier than this one, but this one is actually super light. And I mean, look at it. It's tiny. So the cons for this lens, it's not as sharp as the current generation 50 mil, but it's still pretty sharp, especially if you go down from f2 to f4.5, etc. It has poor minimum focusing distance, so you can't use this if you wanted to get close up for a headshot or close up on the eye or anything like that inside a portraiture or a video. You can't really do that with this lens. It has a pretty far away minimum focusing distance, and those are the pros and cons. So the price. Quickly want to talk on the price of these lenses. This one right here you can get for about $80. This one right here you can get for about $500 to, I think it's originally sold for $629, and I think it's on sale. You can get it at B&H Photo for $526. Yep. Well, yeah, and who knows, you might find a better deal than this one on KEH or eBay or whatever. That's why people like to get older lenses, because they can end up being cheaper, because there's plenty of used versions out there. So I took a couple of pictures, just nothing crazy, just went around the house taking pictures with these lenses. And really, I noticed the only difference is the minimum focusing. When I stopped, this lens is just hella sharp, and there's no, there's very little chromatic aberration, anything like that. This lens, and honestly, this is where this lens can add you a little bit of flavors, because it does have some characteristics that are a little bit different than, these modern day lenses that pretty much everybody's running around with now, because everybody likes to add autofocus and have it be fast. But if you're taking your time and doing portraiture, I think the 50 mil, this older lens can really do you some favors in terms of making yourself stand out from everyone else right now. As far as the bokeh really is very similar on both these lenses. If you pixel peeped, you could see the details in it, and maybe like, they talk about cat's eye and oval shape. Not really gonna worry about that. Like for me, it's just, how does it actually look? Is it actually get you a nice depth of field to the lens? It does. Okay, cool. Let's move on. I'm not gonna be a pixel peeper here. I did notice a slight difference in the chromatic aberration between these two lenses. Nothing major, especially when you stop down, you don't see it as much. But with the f2 lens, the older lens, I noticed when I was outside, there was sun rays on this little, what's it called? I would say this tag from electric socket, whatever it was. I could see that there was like more color shift in the blacks and whites. It's only supposed to be a black and white object with a little bit of red from whatever the coloring was. So, but I just noticed that. So I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.